television pilots, television workshops, fellowships, competitions, and of course, staff writing. Just some of the reasons why you would want to write for television. All of these things mean that you should be watching TV like right now and studying it like a screenwriter. In my part 1 video, I went over some of the basics of TV writing that you should pay attention to because it's all in the details when you're writing for television. Now, if you've been here before, welcome back. If you are new here, I'm Pika Lee, writer and filmmaker. I create videos for my fellow storytellers and creative beings about the business of writing and developing story. Today, I want to cover more things that you should pay attention to so that you can write an effective television pilot or spec script. The first thing I want you to have in the back of your mind when you're writing your pilot script or your spec script is, of course, the story Bible. If you don't know what a story Bible is, a story Bible is pretty much a document that contains all of the elements that have to do with your pilot or with the spec that you're writing. A really great thing about this is you've included your main storyline. What is the premise, the overall thing that is happening in your story for your show? It's a great place to place down any notes about season arcs, for the first, second, and third season if you're writing a spec script. If you're writing an original pilot, you might want to think ahead and write out and sketch out the premises of the first season and the second season at least. And this is just to go ahead and jot down exactly what will be happening in the future, even if you haven't gotten to those episodes. There's also sometimes a synopsis of each episode there, or just quick overview. You might also want to include in there locations that are going to appear and settings that will appear and why they're so important to your show. This is also really great for anything like a Stranger Things type concept where you've got a lot going on. There's maybe some monsters in there. There's a lot of different complex storylines, and you're going to be juggling an ensemble cast. This is sometimes used in pitching your show. So remember to create that story Bible just so that you have a map and a guide of what your show is going to be. Going from story Bible to breaking down episodes is another big thing that I do want to mention to you because it's really important for story development, especially when you're writing a show spec that is based off of something that's had multiple seasons already. It shows what a great writer you are by making sure you are taking as much detailed notes and research and putting enough time and effort into understanding the show. Now, watching a show the way that a screenwriter watches it is being more analytical. So you're breaking down a lot more elements of the show that you would usually do in typical screenwriting. So follow that 3-act structure. Make sure that you are understanding where these pivotal moments happen for these characters, and make sure that you're adapting that into your material or your spec for that show. Now, for television writers who are creating their own original works, what's going right with a show that's currently on a network that you really love? And make some notes about how they actually get their scripts to work in that tone and create that atmosphere for the audience that makes them want to come back. The Haunting of Hill House, I personally studied myself. I really love the genre, I love the platform it's on, and I love the risks that it takes. And it's very much in the realm of something that I myself would in the future love to be able to write. So studying that is going to give me a lot of clues as to what to put into a television show that might be horror driven and dramatic as well. That way I understand how those elements really come together in a show format. So yes, you get a lot out of breaking down TV shows, and that means you have to watch them, and as you're watching, you have to really put on your analytical hat and take down some notes. Season arcs and episode arcs. Yes, this is probably my favorite part because something I didn't understand about television a long time ago was that there's actually 2 types of arcs going on at the same time. You've got a season arc that is going from beginning to end and closing out the series and wrapping it up nicely, and then possibly thrusting you into the next problem for the next season and that arc. And then you've got the smaller arcs that are episodic. So it's really interesting. Sometimes there's not quite a lot of movement in an episode arc for a character, and that does happen in TV often. In The Haunting of Hill House, their whole goal is, of course, figuring out what the heck is going on with Hill House itself. This mystery and all of the ghosts in it. Are they relevant? Are they real? What has happened there? And were their experiences valid? So you've got a family that's sort of struggling with that, and then secondarily, you've got each episode, all of the siblings struggling with what happened back then, all of their small traumas that came from the house itself, and how it's creeping back into their world as adults. How will they deal with that? So I absolutely loved how it was set up, and of course, just remember that when you're doing your season arcs, you need to make sure that season after season, it's not going to be the same arc, and it's going to really grow your character, whether small movements forward or not. It's going to have to impact your characters to make sure that people are coming back season after season. For my spec writers, think in the same terms. If you have Grey's Anatomy, what is Meredith Grey going to really struggle with in the episode that you're working with? So maybe not exactly what's happening with the full season. You could probably just shift your focus to just that one episode, and I don't think that it will make a crazy difference with developing your episode. But just keep in mind that if you're watching a current season and you're basing it off of that season, and there's already enough episodes for you to understand what's happening with this person, try to figure out what that possible overarching seasonal arc might be for Grey or whoever you might be basing yours off of. It's just really good practice. I've already sort of touched upon this, so I'm gonna breeze through it a little bit, but think about the long haul. I've mentioned a few times that you might have to do some research or add in some extra things about your character to show the sustainability of the show. Because if you're pitching an original pilot and you're pitching an original concept, they're going to expect that you're going to have to point out to them or review with them how this is going to be sustainable for a long term. Most want to have a long-term show on their network. Of course, if it's on a platform, it's a little bit different. Of course, they still want sustainability, but you do have more coming out with limited series, shorter period shows, but it's still not super common. Right now, we're still seeing a lot of multi-season shows that are out there. Think about the sustainability and make sure that when you are writing up your pitch or your story bible or you're writing your episode, you are putting in that vision of what is happening in the future and is it sustainable? Is the character in this pilot episode someone that we can follow for a long time? Is he someone likable, relatable, feel like you can keep coming back to watch them? What makes them that interesting? What significant changes they are making, or how they're maybe changing other people's lives in this world that you are going to write or going to create. The last thing I want to talk about is pacing. Pacing is really interesting because a lot of shows treat it so differently, and again, it does depend on the service, whether it's a platform or a network. It's either going to feel too rushed or it's going to feel just right information coming at the right time. And of course, your act breaks are really going to affect the pacing as well. So remember to account for act breaks when you're watching that television show, just to kind of see how that interacts with the development of the story. Are we on a cliffhanger when we leave for the first act break? How are we feeling when we're left at that point? Are we feeling like we have enough information and enough questions to want to come back and watch the rest of it? Absolutely keep in mind that pacing is quite a big deal for television because they can easily change the channel whenever they want to leave. Are all of the storylines coming together, that A, B, and C story, or up to whatever amount of stories, are they properly balanced so that your pacing doesn't seem too congested either? So lots of things to keep in mind here when you're thinking about your pacing and when you're watching television shows. Remember that television is very complex. There's lots of layers and lots of things that you're balancing. especially because of time constraint and of course because of the differences in the storytelling format. So have fun watching your television shows, Scribes. Drop me down what you're watching currently because I'm always up for a new show. I will see you in the next one, Scribes.